What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Friday FanDuel Strategy Session. Here to break down some strategy for tonight's games. It's nice and early in the day, but just a little strategy. No real player talk. Just go over the basics of the slate tonight. And today, it's a two-man booth, by TJ. He's going to help us walk through this and talk through this slate a little bit. TJ, what's up, man?
Doing pretty well. Excited to talk some baseball with you, Chop. It's been an interesting last few days of DFS for me. I've been hitting on all my bats and on all cylinders, but pitching hasn't quite matched up for it for me. So hopefully going to tie it all together today, and we got a big weather slate. So looking forward to talking about it and breaking things down.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here today. So, first question I'll ask you, strategy, I guess. Like last night, little Thursday, 6 game nighttime main slate. Tonight is the opposite. It's almost a full slate now. We do have already have a rain out, so it's got a little bit shorter. But which do you prefer, the smaller 6 to 8 game, or just give me all 14 games?
I really like the smaller 6 to 8 game ones when you can really start seeing concentrated ownership going places, and when that happens in baseball, it's just really easy to get off of it and find some other good plays that no one's playing. So I typically like the 6 to 8. Same with basketball. I like the mid range ones better. But I don't know if necessarily like better is the proper term, but I typically win more money on those middle ones. So there's benefits to both. It's definitely enjoyable to dive into these long ones, but yeah, I think the 6 to 8 range is more of my bag.
And then how does anything at all really change for you strategy wise when we start to talk about a big 13, 14 game slate? Do you stack more, less, the same amount? I mean, does anything really like intrinsically change for you?
I'll typically always get, regardless of the slate size, like I'm pretty much always running a 4 man or stack on FanDuel, 5 on DraftKings. And then I usually try to get 4 on the other side too, but I don't mind going 3 with a one off, 2 with 2 1-offs, or 2 mini stack, stuff like that. Um, the only real difference that changes for me is on these big slates. I'll typically try and get more optimal because like you don't have to worry about ownership as much when you have 12 games. And yeah, the top owned hitter looks really good, but he's still only getting 15 to 18% ownership. So stuff like that, I don't look to get away from the chalk on these big slates as much because I don't think you need to. You can really just find one small way to get different. Where on those small slates, there's a lot more value to like, oh, this pitcher is going to be 40% owned. Maybe I want to play a little bit of that offense.
Fair enough. All right. So you kind of already hinted at it. It's a big weather day today. I think I want to say right before the show, we already had one postponement. So we got one game down. I'll pull up Roth's weather report here. Hey, there's a lot of red out there, man, and so it's a big strategy talking point because here, like we already got the rain out in New York. I believe that's what it was. The rain out in New York.
Yeah, Dodgers, Cubs gone, and then the Yankees is gone. Yankees, Rangers is gone as well.
And but Roth is telling us there's a lot of other spots that are really shady. So my question to you is, as we look at this and we read this, we'll get closer to game time, and these some of these games won't get called off just yet. There'll be big question marks. Inevitably, in the Discord chat, you'll get a dozen people asking the same thing, which is, what do I do with this game? What do I do with this Philly game if it's not postponed already? Like there's or one of these big offensive games. There's big offense or there's a good pitcher. What do I do with it? It's not postponed yet. Is it worth taking the risk? What do you say to that?
So at this point in the day, I feel like we probably kind of go for, reference it like these games are going to be playing. That's one of the benefits that we have here at RG is having a guy like Roth on crunch time. He's going to be on there later with Cheese, so we'll be able to get his final word right going up before crunch time. But for now, I think I'm planning on just kind of looking at this like the games are going to play. Maybe not Mets and Philly. Mets and Philly one is looking pretty gross, but all these other ones in the orange range, I think we look at them like we're playing like they're going to play, and then Roth will give us the final word up the lock.
Yeah, kind of with you right there. I would say that if we're at lock time and we're not sure about some of this stuff, it's not been called off and it could go either way. I think you just got to make a decision on either go all in with it and treat it normal, or you just X them all out and hope some things get postponed. I don't think you middle ground that weather like that. I don't think you just like I don't know. Give me a Toronto, Cleveland. If I don't want to sprinkle in Toronto and Cleveland in half of my lineups. I'm either going to say, all right, I like the game, I'm going to go all in, or I'm going to exit out completely and do it that way. I don't think we're sprinkling in any of these guys, right?
That's where I'm at too. Like, as much as I love me some Vlad Guerrero's not a one-off tonight, because if that, like, you want to either go all in on that game, because if that game gets postponed and you got Vlad Guerrero with 0, you're pretty much done anyways, because that's probably the top hitter in your lineup. And so it doesn't really matter at that point. Once it's postponed, you're kind of screwed. So I would rather if I think it's going to play, I'm playing all of it. And if I want these guys, I'm going all in. But if I don't think it's going to play, or I don't really like the game anyways, then I'm just going to get completely off of it, like you said. And another interesting thing as well, like the good thing about Crunch Time tonight is our sponsor FanDuel sponsoring it, and so Crunch Time is free. So when we got a crazy weather slate like today, you can get Roth's word totally for free on YouTube. So make sure you're here for that, as well as if you're watching us on YouTube right now. Obviously, I can't do the Spidey Bomb if we hit X amount of likes, because this isn't a live show. But hey, let's do it. I'm going to trust the people. Hit the like button, and we'll still get some home run plays at the end of the show.
Awesome, man. So do you ever look at Roth's weather edge, the actual edge part of it, where he's giving you the breakdown on the weather and how the past has maybe could help us out tonight? I'm seeing a lot of red in his weather edge tonight, meaning there's a lot of tough spots for hitting, and it you get a little bit cooler weather, you get the rain coming in. I get it, I understand it. So there's a lot of spots where the offense should theoretically be down tonight due to weather. And let me see. Yeah, here we go. Miami, San Diego actually is one of the only spots with a lot of green and a lot of sample size there too. So are you going to take this into consideration tonight? This red and this green on the weather edge, or do you just think that's baked into your projections already?
I feel like a lot of it might be a little baked in, but I do look at it for one, and today is actually a perfect example of a slate to look at it. And so it's definitely not the main research point for me. Like, it's not the first data point I look to and build my entire stacks around it. But what I do like to see is, if there's a game that is going to be very high owned and it looks poor on the weather edge, then that gives me more incentive to fade it. If there's a game that's very low owned, like tonight, that's the only strong game on the weather edge tool, that gives me some interest in going there, because we have a ton of games with cold weather. We have a ton of games with rain that we're worried about postponement. And we have one game with great weather, with very good pitchers pitching, that nobody's playing tonight. So a night like this one, where there is edge in the weather edge, and people aren't going to the one game that's getting some good weather, I do very much like using it.
Fair enough. Let's get into some of those teams that we could be looking at tonight. So I got some the RG betting page pulled up here with some team totals, and just going to sort by the team total just to kind of break it down a little bit. Let's talk about some of these guys. Who are some of your favorite stacks at the top of the list? We're spearheaded here by, first of all, we're on a Friday night with a lot of games, and we don't have a team total over 5. That kind of tells you where the state of baseball is right now. There's a lot more pitching or lack of hitting, so it's very interesting like that. When you see something like that, does that affect your stacking at all? Do you think like, geez, man, maybe I don't need to go a 4x4 or something along those lines? I can get away with maybe a little bit less stacking, or is it just the same as it was last year for you?
To me, it's the same in terms of how much I want to stack, but it's different in terms of who I'm stacking. Because if you have everyone between a 3 and a 4.5 total, and then all of a sudden teams are picking up 20-30% team ownership, well, then I'm out. Like, it's not like it's a Coors Field game that has a 9 total, or I guess an 11 total when you're putting the two teams together. Like, it's not something like that where you're scared of fading it because it has a very strong chance of doing well. When it's all clumped in like this, to me, it's just more reason to fade the chalk.
So let's take a look at some of those teams. Boston against Vincent Velasquez got a big team total. Houston's right behind that against Detroit and Arizona. Wow, that's crazy. Arizona is not a particularly good offense, but they're grabbing the third highest team total on the board tonight. Does any of those guys stand out to you?
So one stands out particularly as a fade, and that's Arizona. Not because Chad Kuhl, I think, is going to be shutting them down by any means, but they're, to me, the team that's standing out is going heavily over-owned on this slate. What's interesting is I don't think we're going to struggle to find bats on this slate. I think that's going to be easy enough. Pitching is going to be a different story because we have, seems like, all of our top pitchers in weather games. And so Arizona, if they're going to be picking up a ton of ownership, they're playing Colorado outside of Coors Field. That's going to be an offense I'm getting out of. Boston and Houston, they are picking up ownership, but I don't think it's necessarily too much of ownership based on how good of plays they are. So Boston and Houston, I'm still going to be in on, but Arizona, I think, is going to be the team that I'm going to look to get away from.
Yeah, and then we got a little bit of the tier just underneath that. Some pretty decent numbers here, and some spots we can attack. Is there anybody in that tier, just below those big three that you feel pretty good about?
Yeah, so teams that I feel pretty good about is I'm just kind of got to look here and make sure I'm sorting by weather because last night the Mets weren't picking up too much ownership and they were playing Aaron Nola, who was picking up a ton. And so that's kind of what I meant lately, that I've been hitting the bats, but I haven't really been hitting the pitcher because I was on McClanahan as well. But I loved Lindor. I loved Altuve, and I like the whole Met stack and the whole Philly stack. And so the Mets are a team I really like again tonight, but that's a team that we're going to have to check out the weather on. The next one that I'm looking at in the mid tier that I'm pretty fond of is Milwaukee. They've just absolutely been crushing the ball lately, and they're playing Ynoa, he's a pretty good strikeout pitcher, but he also gives up a lot of walks. So that's a team I'm interested in. And then hold on. Yeah. Okay, good. I just had to make sure that they are, in fact, on the main slate. And then the final one I kind of want to look towards is San Diego and Miami. That game interests me because of this weather. They are not anywhere near the top of the board for projected offenses tonight, but we have that weather. And then because we're also going to see so many of these top pitchers be questionable tonight due to weather, we have Scherzer in the weather game. We have Gausman in a weather game. We have Garrett Cole already gone. Bieber's in a weather game. Lauer's in a tough matchup. A lot of, I think, ownership is going to go towards Yu Darvish and Sandy Alcantara. And so because of that, it definitely gives me some interest in these offenses in a strong weather game.
So how do you balance that? Because people will ask that a lot too as we get closer. Is you got some of these other pitchers that you're gonna scratch off maybe because of weather, and then you look at the names and the numbers, and Alcantara and Darvish are actually pretty good. So how much should I be playing them, and how much should I be stacking against them? Like, can I do both? I mean, obviously not in the same lineup, but if I got 150 lineups, MMEing, like, is it okay to play 20% Alcantara, 20% Darvish, and stack against them in another 20 and 20?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd want to get to that much of them just because I think I guess it'll depend on how many options we lose, but there's still a big slate with some other guys that aren't going to pick up a lot of ownership, and I have some interest in their upside tonight. But yeah, I definitely still think you're playing like Darvish would still probably be my highest owned pitcher tonight if we lose Scherzer and Gausman and Bieber.
So you're cool with playing some Darvish and then coming back in other lineups and just stacking against him, right? Like, no
Yeah,
big deal.
exactly. No big deal with that whatsoever. I'm totally good with that. If I was playing 150 tonight though, I haven't thrown any lineups in yet. I'm not sure if it'll be a 1 lineup, a 3 lineup, or a 150 for me. But if I was, I don't think I'd be getting any pitcher more than 10-15% tonight.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Let's is there anything else that stands out to you at any of these teams? So you already mentioned that you might be stacking against you Darvish a little bit. That's one of the lower team totals on the board. So obviously the team totals tonight really aren't bothering you. Like it's Boston getting the biggest team total and then stacking against Darvish with one of the lower team totals. You're not really looking at this page and basing your stacks off of this, are you?
Not fully. Like I'm still probably going to get Boston and Houston as my 2 highest owned stacks. I do really like those offenses tonight, but we got to get different somewhere. So outside of that, that's where I'm going to look to differentiate. And I just see a big clump of offenses that look almost the same tonight. And so because of that, I'm just going to pick the ones that aren't picking up near as much ownership.
And you briefly talked about it on FanDuel. You don't have that 5-3 option on your stack. You can only 4 maximum. So what's your preferred method tonight on a maybe 13, maybe 12 game slate here, depending on the rainouts? What's your preferred stacking? Is it 4x4, 4x3, 4x2, 4x1x1x1? Like, what do you like to do on a night like tonight?
So I always set up my lineup was I put in my 4, and then I start a second stack. And when I begin my second stack, when I'm hand building, I always have the goal of making it 4-4. But if I make a 4-4 and there's no pitcher I can get in my lineup that I like, then I start looking at, okay, who can I sub out and add in for a one-off? Who is the lowest ceiling player in this stack? The one who's probably not going to be getting any homers. He's just in this stack for continuity. That's who I'm taking out, and I'm trying to save some salary for a one-off, or maybe I'm bumping down for a pitcher and getting an expensive one-off. So in my one-offs, I always try and pick home run guys, always trying to get guys who have power. And so I start trying to hit a 4-4. If that doesn't work for me to make a lineup that I like, then that's when I start looking for a one-off or a 4-3. If I still can't get anything, that's where I'm looking for either 4-2-1-1 or 4-2-2. I really do like getting 2 mini stacks in there as well, doing some kind of two guys close in a lineup with each other here, 2 guys close in a lineup each other there, that type of thing. It seems as though, okay, there we go. I thought we may have lost Chop for a second, but I think it was just a screen.
No, I just put it on you while I refresh that page.
Perfect.
So,
but yeah, that's where it really gets to me. 4-1-1-1-1. Unless I'm doing a cash game team that I'm also throwing in tournaments, that's typically not where I get. But I usually like to get at least a 4-2.
All right, I pulled up the lineup HQ and sorted by some hitters ownerships tonight. This seems really like some big numbers for a big slate. Like Boston's Devers is going to. This is early and they'll adjust it, but on the plus side of 20% on a big slate is a lot, and you have a lot of these guys. So let me see here. I don't know. These guys weren't really stacks you pulled up, but let's say we're talking about the Boston stack tonight, and it's the highest team total on the board. It's going to gather some ownership, but you don't want to get away from it completely. What do you do with a guy like Devers or Xander Bogaerts who are gathering a lot of ownership within that stack? Are we sticking with them, or are we just trying to go to different spots within that lineup and that are a little bit less owned, or how you treat something like that?
So because this is my highest rated offense on the board, I'm fine with playing the chalk as long as I'm getting different elsewhere. So there are some pitchers I like tonight that's not picking up a lot of ownership. If we lose these top end guys, and I think we'll see ownership concentrate on them a little more, but I really like Luis Garcia for Houston. I think if we lose a lot of these big time pitchers, he's probably going to end up being the chalk, and you're going to end up seeing him with a lot of these Boston guys, because if you're trying to get Devers and you're trying to get JD, you're trying to get Bogaerts, you need you can't quite get up to Darvish unless you're sacrificing somewhere else. So to me, there's some pitchers a pitcher I like in the similar tier that isn't going to be getting near as much ownership is Merrill Kelly. He's playing against Colorado, and they're not in Coors anymore, and so he's been somebody that he's been pitching very well this year, and so I don't mind taking some shots there. And then with my lower owned pitchers, that's where I'm going to be getting these Boston stacks.
All right, I'm going to just isolate Boston here for a minute. They are going to be one of the higher owned stacks probably, and some of these guys are going to be high on just because of that team total and everything that's going on with the weather. So looking at this and their projected lineup here tonight. So what's your preferred? Whoa, close those updates. What's your preferred? How do I say it? Like the places you're looking to stack in a lineup. Are you strictly like tonight, looking at the ownership, looking at everything? Are you like I got to have these guys next to each other in the order in my stack because that's the highest correlation? Or are you willing to like bounce them around, go with a leadoff guy and a number 4 guy, and even go down to the 7 guy to preserve a little extra equity on ownership? How would you treat a stack like Boston in terms of what lineup order you're putting in your stack?
So if I'm mini stacking, then I like to try and keep them close together. However, if I'm going 4-man, I don't really care because you can go 2, 4, 6, 8, or 1, 5, 7, and at the end of the day, a couple guys get out in a run, and all your guys are still correlating and getting points. So when it's a 4-man stack, I'm good with spreading it out whenever. When I'm making it smaller, that's when things will get a little different for me. On a team like Boston, where their offense is very top heavy, like the top of their lineup is just in a different realm than the bottom of their lineup, I'm definitely going to still be trying to get a lot of Devers, a lot of JD Martinez, and then sprinkle in the Jackie Bradleys and the Franchi Corderos. But I'm not going to be really just going, all right, I love the 6 to 9 Boston stack tonight. There are times that I love doing that with, for example, the Dodgers. The lower half of the Dodgers stack is like the lower half of the Dodgers lineup. That's one of my favorite stacks, regardless of the slate, because they're phenomenal hitters and they're never picking up the same ownership, even if the Dodgers are chalky. But with a team like Boston, like I'm definitely going to be centering my stacks around JD and Rafael Devers. If I'm single entrying, I'm probably going to go Devers, Martinez, Alex Verdugo, who's not picking up very much ownership and is a bit cheaper, and then one of Story or Bogarts.
Cool. Fair enough. Now let's we're going to get out of here in a few minutes, but we need to talk about a few pitchers that we like real quick and kind of end it on that show. Looking at some of these guys, probably the highest owned guy would have been Scherzer. But we're talking about maybe we might get the rain out before then. That's going to take a lot of ownership and disperse it into other places. First question, all right. Right now that looks bad. But those clouds could kind of clear up a little bit closer to games. It could be more of a like 50-50 on Philadelphia and the Mets later on in the day. Like we could be approaching lock time and Roth could say, man, I really don't know how this is going to play out. You're on your own. And that's happened before. If it's like that, and then maybe those numbers come down on Scherzer, those ownership numbers, because people don't want to take the chance. How would you treat something like that?
Yeah, so it really depends on the type of weather they're at for me. Like if it's a situation where there's a lot of rain coming in around the 3rd or 4th inning, then regardless of what the ownership is, I'm just going to fade those pitchers and just hope that they get a delay and don't come back in. If it's a situation where it's like, yeah, it's really ugly weather, they're either going to postpone this one or try and play through it. That's when I'm going to try and take those shots. And that's when I'm going to play them. In this situation, like it's a guy like Scherzer, so that if they look like if we get the okay from Roth, like, yeah, I think they're going to try it. They have the window for the starting pitcher. I think they're going to do it. Scherzer's so good that I'm going to play him regardless. But this is also a team, Philly, that has a lot of power. If we do lose these rain games, we don't have Scherzer, we don't have Bieber, we don't have Gaussman, then I think I'm really looking at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-man pool tonight for pitching. Some of them I'm a little uncomfortable with. Josh Windler in there, I'm not very comfortable with, but I think he's your best option on FanDuel if you want to go cheap today. Yeah, it's 6,500 playing against Oakland. I think that would be my favorite option for a very cheap guy. In the mid-range, I don't mind taking shots on Merrill Kelly, Nathan Eovaldi, Alex Cobb, but I definitely think your top option there is Luis Garcia. And then Lauer, Gilbert, and Alcantara, I like all of them for tournaments. And then Yu Darvish is your top end guy at the top if you lose those guys. But if we don't lose them, I think Scherzer would be number 1, Gaussman would be number 2, and Bieber would be number 3 for me. Those weather ones are probably the 3 I like the best.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and say if the weather is just kind of 50-50 or what have you, my favorite is Kevin Gaussman. I love the ownership we're going to get on him tonight. And I think that game may play out. He could be the highest scoring guy on the slate, on any slate. And I'm going to get him at some really cheap ownership tonight. So I like that one. And then Logan, if all those other guys get canceled out, give me some Logan Gilbert. I think he looks good. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us, TJ. I think that's just a little strategy breakdown. If you want to get the insight on the actual players, positions, and all the other good stuff, get on YouTube and get to Grinders Live tonight, and then Crunch Time with Roth and the boys. So, TJ, got anything for the people before we jump out of here?
Hit that like button for us. Help us battle against the YouTube algorithm. It's the only way, no matter how good the content is, the only way people see it is if you comment, you hit that like button. And I trust you to do it. So we're going to give out some home run plays. If you were watching the other day, you saw we had Manny Machado who hit a home run. The Spidey Bomb came through. Yesterday on the expert survey, we had a free expert survey, premium content. Everyone was allowed to check it out. We had Francisco Lindor hitting a bomb. We had Jose Altuve hitting a bomb. So ever since Spidey sent that letter to Rob Manfred, things have been going good. So there is a very high upside player tonight that is not picking up any type of ownership. And yes, I love Juan Soto. I love Rafael Devers. They're in great spots, but Shohei Ohtani is probably the best play on this slate, and he is not picking up very much ownership. He's hitting a home run tonight.
There you have it, people. You just need to hit the like button a little bit now and pay that thing off. But that sounds good. So we appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate TJ joining me today. This particular show, I'll be back next week. As always, like I said, look out for Crunch Time Grinders Live later on. That's where we get a little bit closer to the slate and some of this stuff clears up a little bit. So until then, guys, good luck in all those GPPs. For TJ, I was Chop. We'll be back later. But for now, we're out of here.